Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I'll just start by saying that I'm going to record this part so we could maybe use some clips for social media, and also if somebody was interested and couldn't be here, they'll be able to at least get this educational part of the evening. Will you let me know when, are we recording now? Okay, great. So my name is Kylie Bestenlaner. I'm the vicar here at Peace. And I have with us this evening Connie Phillips, who is the president of the Lutheran Social Services of the Southwest. And then we also have Dragan Subotic. Is that how you pronounce it?
Close.
Tell me.
Dragan Subotic.
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 See?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And he's the director of Refugee and Immigration Services at the Lutheran Social Services of the Southwest. So I'm really excited to have them here with us this evening to tell us a little bit more about immigration and specifically refugees, because they work the most with refugees. And so I thought, with this movie we just watched, Elemental, the Disney movie, I thought it'd be a fun way for us to start this conversation off. And I'm gonna get a clicker. Awesome. Thank you. Let me make sure I know how to do it. Yeah, and do I point it at the back? Maybe we could edit this part out of the video. Where do I point it? Okay, so up at the back and down. Great, not up. Okay, awesome. So Ember's family faced a little difficulty when they were entering Element City. There was multiple steps to the process, and so I thought we could start by talking about the different ways that people can legally come here to the United States. Which one of you would like to kind of walk us through?
Okay.
I'm going to defer to Dragan.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm going to just say a few words. Again, my name is Dragan Subotic. I am Director of Refugee and Immigration Services. I came to U.S. with my wife and 8-year-old son back in '97 as a refugee family after the war in former Yugoslavia. Escaped that, came here. Agency Lutheran Social Services was our sponsor. I hope you understand me like that guy with a little accent here and there, but I hope you can understand. So started new life here, and that was the one path of legal immigration that was mentioned on this chart over here. I will just go back a little bit to talk about generally as country of immigrants and immigration. You know, everything started 100 years ago when your grandpas arrived to this country. But the modern law and act that was adopted in the U.S. Constitution was back in 1952. It's called Immigration and Nationality Act, which really described the process, how people legally can come to this country. So we are talking about refugee resettlement. Refugee is one of the legal ways of people to come to this country, as you can see here. You apply overseas, as I did, escaped my country due to war or some kind of persecution that people could feel and cannot willingly go back to their own country because of the persecution based on race, religion, ethnicity, race, and the political party or whatever association you had. And then once when you complete interview process and vetting process, you are interviewed by officer from Department of Homeland Security who would finally put a stamp on your visa so you can come to United States. And then you go through vetting process for agencies and national security to see that you are who you are, that your story and everything matches so that you don't do any illegal kind of ways to get here. So once when you are approved, you come here. If you don't have relatives, you will be helped with one of the resettlement agencies, like Lutheran Social Services. You have Catholic Charities. You have International Rescue Committee. There are several national voluntary agencies that are part of this process. It's federal program, U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program, is funded based on two main reasons. One is humanitarian response to any crisis that U.S. feel we should help. And the second is national interest. Sometimes we have national interest to help some people and offer them to come to the United States. So that's the first one. The second is asylum process, which somebody who comes legally in the United States for different purposes, visitors or students and all of that, could come and they would apply. If they feel that they cannot go back for any reason, they can apply for asylum, and if they can prove that they have some of these grounds for fear, they can get their asylum granted, and they would be legally here again. The third is with people that are crossing the border, not necessarily getting through visa process here, but they had initial interview at the detention center where they have to prove the burden that that is credible for U.S. to approve their status. And they would go to immigration court, and if they get approved, they go and they become legal. If they don't get approved, they're going to be deported. So those are four kind of main, but again, immigration and the Nationality Act is very complex. Our immigration law is very complex. We are not talking about other way, family-based petition. If I'm a U.S. citizen, I can put petition for my parents, for my spouse, for unmarried kids, married kids, siblings, but waiting time for visa to get available for them is sometimes up to 20 years for people. That's the regular legal family-based petition. And then we are talking about employment-based visas, that people come legally to work in the United States, but they all have to go through the legal process. And we have student visa programs, as you know, that people are coming here legally just to study, and after they go back. I don't know how in details we can go more. This movie was so overwhelming for me because I found so many things there that I found myself as someone who says bad, it's bad. You know? Yeah. Like I'm still struggling, as you can see, after 28 years, you know. But I was just telling Connie, I found so many things. My oldest son got married in December, and he married kind of pure American girl. And so we had a wedding, wedding that half of was from our side, wife and mine, and half pure Americans who are kind of, and we were mixing songs and food. Everything was so fun. And I really see that from the heart, you know, like how hard it is to face some of the challenges that we are seeing these days. I don't want to go into any further point, but that's where I would stop, definitely, to give you a little overview. So all people that we serve and we help are legally admitted under the certain categories. And they are here, and just I'm proud to be director of the program that exists for almost 35 years. Mm-hmm. And our self-sufficiency rate of people that they can come to this country is over 80% within 6 months. So I got first job at the airport pushing the cars. After 3 weeks, my wife, who was a nurse, she started as a housekeeping after 4 weeks of United. So we were on our own pretty much after 1 month, you know, being. And majority of people are doing like that. I know there is a lot of misconception about burden, are these people coming? No, really, we can definitely testify how successful refugee resettlement is in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm excited that you'll get to continue telling us more about your own personal story as a refugee here. as we maybe ask some more questions. But to maybe just clarify a couple things I wanted to lift up. When someone comes to seek asylum, am I correct that they need to have some kind of sponsor that?
No.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Asylum, and that's one of the things that I was so excited when Vicar Kiley wanted to have this group together, because we tell everybody who will listen that, you know, everybody wants to throw immigrants into the same bucket, but there's very different circumstances for each group of immigrants. And they do have commonalities. They're trying to make a better life. Many of them are fleeing. They can't, it's dangerous. They can't stay where they were. They can't feed their families. It's not safe. But if they just come on their own, they can still come and ask for asylum. And the United States has always had a way for people to ask for asylum. Now, that's been challenging in the last few years, and especially right now. But there's always been the ability to come to the border and to present yourself and say, I am requesting asylum. And if you can prove that you have a credible fear, that you are going to meet the criteria of being able to come into the country because you're being persecuted because of your race, your religion, your political affiliation, violence, then you may be able to come into the country. You don't have to have a sponsor. The difficulty is, as an asylum seeker, when you get into the country, you won't have a work permit. So you won't have a way to work, and you won't have a way to get money. And so that's where asylum seekers really do need to have a sponsor, because someone has to help them until they get a work permit. And where refugees, when we greet a refugee who comes through the refugee program, when we greet them at the airport, they already have their work permit. They're ready to go. They can work. They're eligible for any benefits that a new citizen is eligible for. They have a whole different set of circumstances for them than an asylum seeker. Asylum seekers don't get any kind of benefits. We do not hand them. My husband and I joke, Randy and I joke that, you know, you don't get a cell phone and health insurance at the border. There is, for an asylum seeker, there is no public support. So you do have to have somebody who's going to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll go to our next question to kind of prompt us to maybe talk a little bit more specifically about the refugees that LSS works with. So I said that once Ember's family made it legally to Element City, they had a hard time establishing a home. So we saw that scene where they were being turned away from all the different places they were looking to live. It definitely gave me the thoughts of the Holy Family trying to find a place to stay in Bethlehem. So how does this reflect real barriers immigrants encounter, such as legal restrictions, discrimination, or economic hardship? Do you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I found myself coming. Language could be the first barrier. As you could see, when they arrive, you know, they have to adapt. Most of the refugees are coming from non-English speaking countries, you know, and with no prior English that they learn in the school. And I found interesting that the Lutherans, majority of them, they came to U.S. from non-English speaking countries, you know, Germany, Sweden, Scandinavians, they don't speak English. That was their biggest challenge when they arrived in U.S. back 200 years ago, or, you know. So the language is definitely one. Cultural difference definitely takes huge place in terms of the being recognized, not face some, you know, I wouldn't say denials in any benefits that you may see, but there are definitely challenges that each of refugee families are seeing from that cultural adjustment, not necessarily discrimination, but it just takes time to go through the process.
Yeah. What are some of the legal things that LSS has to help families face once they get here?
I can just start. Refugees are admitted as indefinitely in U.S., but they have to adjust their status to green cards. We all know what green card is. After 1 year being in U.S., they have to apply, and we are providing those services to help them fill out applications to make sure that they didn't committed any crime during that first year, and they are going to get green card in a matter of a few months, and then 3 years later, around 4 years and 9 months, they can apply for citizenship. That's my case, and that's what we do. And our process within those 3 years to do as much orientation, classes, through work, to really integrate them more, that they can be able to go through the naturalization process and get their citizenship after 5 years. And that's our biggest kind of awards, when we see the same family that we met at the airport with a bunch of kids, they didn't speak English, and then a year later we see them when they apply for green cards. Some of them are working, they are still struggling, and then 5 years later they come to us to help them to apply for citizenship, and then 5 years later you see them, they receive their certificates, their passports, and that's kind of big circle that we see, and that's how we see our work, really, to do that full integration process.
Yeah.
We have to help too with, because we don't rent the apartments to put them in. It's amazing, but landlords will, because they work with us, will go ahead and rent to the family when they get here. But the family doesn't have any idea it's in English, what the lease says. So that's another interpretation that we do a lot, is explaining what the lease is, what their legal responsibilities are, when they can move if they want to, explaining all that. School paperwork, that's in English usually. We have to explain what that is. We have to explain that the kids have to go to school. Those are the kind of things. And then with employment, sometimes we have to intervene with employers who don't quite understand, especially right now, the work permit situation, and that they can indeed legally work.
Yeah. So I think now let's take a time if that brought up any questions for you. Patrick, I see you have one.
Hi, I'm Patrick McIver, and as a realtor, we have to go through a lot of training for not redlining or taking people out of an area. We have to show no discrimination in showing people what they want to see. We ask them, where do you want to live? And that's one of the things people coming into the country don't know, is where they want to live.
Right.
So, and I can't guide as a realtor, say, well, this is the best place for you. We can suggest you want to be closer to the center of the city. You have, price ranges that you're looking to be within. If they're buying, if they're renting, same thing. We have to find the landlords that are willing to take them. And that's a harder process, because we don't know if the landlords are rejecting them because they don't have enough background, or because they're immigrants. So how do we get around that? How do we, I know I can report it.
Yeah.
How can we help people find, especially as a realtor, find those places?
Well, that's a big systemic question, and it kind of leads me to this next thing I was thinking about social divisions within the movie and then in our real world. And where you live is a big part of those divisions that we see. Oh, do you mind being on a mic? Do you mind being on a mic? That way we can hear you.
So if they're coming for asylum, they don't have a work visa,
Right.
right? So they come in, they're going to get an apartment, get a house, they're going to live somewhere, right? It's based on the landlord saying that it's okay to live here, right? How
Well, again, asylum seekers that are not working with our organization, there are some asylum seekers that once they've been released into the country, they have a court date that they're going to go to. Some of them will, depending on the categories, and it gets a little complicated, might be eligible for refugee services. If they're coming from certain countries, if they're meeting certain criteria. You all have heard in the news temporary humanitarian parole. There's some things that have happened over the last few years that made them eligible actually for some of the same kind of subsidies and services that refugees had. If it's you're running the sort of the stereotypical, someone who comes up from Central America, goes to the border, is asking for asylum, they are released in the interior, they don't qualify for anything. They didn't come from Cuba, Haiti, Ukraine. They didn't come from any of the countries that have temporary status. They're not eligible for anything. Usually they know someone in the United States. Right. And they go to wherever that is, and they basically work in a shadow economy to stay with that person, to earn money somehow.
What do you mean by a shadow economy?
A shadow economy. Basically, somebody's going to pay them cash.
Okay.
Or they're going to sell tamales.
They're going to cut yards or whatever.
They're going to cut yards. They're going to clean houses for cash so that they can get income. And then they would pay their expenses that way. But they wouldn't be eligible for any kind of services.
Yeah. Any other question? Yep. One more. Let's get the mic just so online we can hear the question. Thank you.
This is Deborah Howard, and I am usually very loud when people ask me to speak softer. But I'm glad to be here. You said something about the shadow economy, and it made me think, are there shadow supportive services that align with that? Because I know you all are above the line. Are there?
Yeah. I wouldn't call them shadow services. There are voluntary groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are voluntary groups that we're aware of, and that if somebody shows up at our office and they say, they need help, and they're not eligible for our services, then our case managers.
We have shelters in the community that they are offering some type of help. But as an agency, as a program, we can't do any much.
But we can tell them
Yeah.
that these volunteer services are available through different churches or just groups that there's been a group that's been, for years has been at the bus station, just to be able to offer, the Greyhound station, just to be able to offer food and support.
I promise this will be my last question. Given the rapid changes in eligibility, almost on a chaotic framework, are you, the official supportive services, as well as those volunteer services, able to even keep up at all? And how do we help? I mean, I'm here to learn, how do we make this go farther and minimize the hurt?
So LSS has been extremely disrupted by the changes in this administration's approach to asylum and refugee resettlement. First of all, there is no refugee resettlement occurring. No one is coming right now. They stopped coming as of January 21st, and no one has come. No one's arrived. There have been a few folks from South Africa. No one's come to Phoenix. There have been in other parts of the country, but there's been no one that has come. And the people who are here under temporary humanitarian parole, their paroles are expiring, and if they haven't started their asylum process, then they are no longer eligible for work permits or for any kind of services. So all of that has stopped. So we are even more right now depending on community members who want to come alongside refugees who arrived in the last 6 months to a year, who are still struggling to get on their feet and are looking for that helping hand from a neighbor to help them with English language skills, understand paperwork, figure out how to, pardon?
Jobs.
and jobs, help them find jobs, because we've had to downsize. We've laid off 50-some staff in our refugee programming because we are no longer being paid for that work. We are still getting paid for some work, but not to the extent that we had been. So we're looking for volunteers. And in fact, I happen to bring with me this sign-up sheet. And if any of you would like to know more or would just like to start getting our email, if you don't get it now, I'm just going to pass this around. And I've also left out on the table in the back just some brochures about Lutheran Social Services. Thank you, Patrick. And a list of some of the in-kind, some of the donation needs that we collect by month. So these are available out on the back table. I know you guys are used to picking up, since I'm a member here, I know we pick up our information on the table, so I put these two things there.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I'm going to skip to, let's see. All right. How does Ember's family reflect the experience of immigrant families trying to preserve their culture in this new society? And so I thought this would be an opportunity for you to share more of your story with us.
Yeah, definitely the flame that he was passionately worried about, in the movie is, I didn't bring the flame, but I did bring culture, piece of culture. I was 34, my wife, and we arrived, so you can't erase that. Definitely carry. And just the sense of leaving your home, going into unknowns, and you try to bring with you and preserve part of it as much as you can, as probably each of your predecessors before. When they came to U.S., your heart is still, somewhere, but your reality is now here. However, my son was 8 years old, and of course, right away in school, he Americanized through definitely high school, and fully integrated as someone who was born here. But at home, we have our own kind of small cultural things, and I was just explaining, I'm Orthodox Serbian, my wife is Catholic Croatian, so that's a kind of mixed culture, as I could see there. We had ethnic civil war because of those two differences. And now, with kids growing up here, you can see that they are getting into this kind of fully integrated in the country, but they are also kept in our home with this culturally, things that we would like them to preserve, including language as much as we can, and all other things. So I believe every immigrant family that comes to U.S. would like to keep some part of their, but of course over the years it will kind of go away. But again, we don't want to create like a ghettos, where we saw that problem in Europe when most immigrants and migrants are alienated, and they also feel self-alienated from community. So they ended up being in the corners of the city, really never integrated into society, like that's the case in Belgium, in France, in lots of these countries in Europe. And that was a problem in the beginning in the US when we had small communities purely there where they feel comfortable, they go out. So all what we have doing in the last decades is to move people. Yes, you can preserve your culture and you can be fine, but let's integrate more. Mm-hmm. That's how I see that it could work, and obviously it was working for a while.
That's kind of what my family did. My father immigrated here from Colombia in 1964.
Yeah.
His first thought was, I need to get out of the Colombian community and integrate with
Within the community. Yeah.
Yeah, start speaking English, start socializing with Americans.
Correct.
And the one thing he wanted to get rid of and push aside was the Colombian culture. talk to me in English, my mom talked to me in Spanish. You know, because
Mom is mom.
mom's mom, you know, and she was, even after being here for 40 years, she never really picked up the English language. Whereas my dad, you know, he read books and started speaking English in complicated words, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's then they had me in '68, and I only spoke English.
Yeah.
To my dad, to my mom, you know, Spanish broken.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't want anything to do with Colombia, and he still doesn't.
Yeah.
Even though we have cousins
It,
and relatives that have come, immigrated here from Colombia as well.
you know, I know the reason. He really wanted you to fast integrate so that you can get equal access to like any American. That was a problem in the 60s, 70s when people were changing names to be more Americanized names and stuff like that. But I think, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for sharing your story. And I also want to lift up that my family has that same similar experience. My grandfather is from Mexico, and he did not want my mother to know any Spanish. And so I think it's a delicate balance when we talk about this, because I think the urge is to, well, people know that proximity to whiteness gives people more power. And so I do want to name that into the space, that there is a desire for your children to succeed, and success in America equals whiteness and English. And so I want to name that, because I think it causes a lot of harm to immigrant communities. Yeah, Patrick, would you like to say something?
I have a similar story to all of you. My parents, my mom was Lebanese, but was born and raised here in the States. My dad was Lebanese and born and raised in Lebanon. When my mom and dad met, they got married here in the States, went back to Lebanon, had me about 6 months later in 60. I was born in 67, early 68, we came back to the States. My dad did not want to speak Arabic. We grew up in the Orthodox Church, much similar to you, and that is the flame that they carried, that Orthodox churchness. So, but when I met my wife, and my mother-in-law is here, I was lucky enough to be accepted into their family. And when we got married, it was much like you, or your son. I was the Orthodox Arab guy, big fat Greek wedding type of thing. And my mother-in-law and their family is Irish and German. And so, you know, the two mixed really well. I mean, we had a great wedding. Everybody had a great time, but we were able to find that closeness. And my dad, you know, obviously wanted me to marry an Arab girl. My mom was like, yeah, you're going to find who you love.
Yeah.
So this movie hits a lot of the bases. You know, me and my wife were engaged for like 7 years. So, but yeah, now we have a wonderful family. We've been together we've been married for over 25 years. Been together for 30-something years. So, yeah, it hits the same. You have that closeness, that you know, your roots. So when I came to the Lutheran church, that was that big jump from and my dad left Lebanon, so that was a big jump for him. So when I moved out here to Arizona, they lived in Chicago. So that wasn't my jump, you know, and that, why are you leaving us?
Yeah.
You know, so I same deal. I can barely speak Arabic. I can speak the bad words and food. That's
Stick with good food, yeah.
yeah, I'll teach you that later.
So I noticed that Ember and Wade's relationship opened a door for cross-cultural communication and learning counter-narratives. So I was wondering if we could brainstorm in the room, what are some ways that we can learn counter-narratives that can help us grow beyond racial stereotypes? I'm going to invite up first to share.
I probably can't speak loud enough.
Yeah, but we're recording, yeah. Thank you.
Well, I think one thing in racial stereotypes, that we always refer to the person first. Instead of the black man, we say the man who's black. Or the little boy who has, I don't even know, but that's what I'm saying, not referring to the person first, rather than their color, maybe instead, the woman who, let's take for instance me, the woman in the pink shirt instead of the fat woman in the pink shirt. I guess those kinds of things. I guess the thing is always to remember to say the woman, the child, the man first. And it's okay to refer to their color. It's okay to say the man who's black, the woman who's brown, whatever, but always to refer to them as their humanity first, and then their race or whatever. I guess we come from a really cross-racial community in our families. I am half Norwegian. We adopted my daughter from Costa Rica. She married into a Colombian family, and then my grandchildren both were immersed into a school in Denver, a charter school, into Mandarin Chinese class. So my grandkids speak English, Spanish, Mandarin Chinese, and my grandson has taught himself a couple other languages. So I think that also is great for children to be able to have those opportunities to be in schools and that kind of thing. But I guess
Yeah, exposed to other, yeah, so exposed to other cultures.
yes,
Yeah.
and the fact that because
Than
they
your
were
own.
in kindergarten when they were involved, and my grandson came home the first day and said, because they only spoke Mandarin Chinese the whole day, he was immersed from a kindergartner into Chinese, and he came home and said, Mom, I didn't understand a word my teacher said today, and didn't for a while. But I think because that side of their brain was being used so much, they picked up other languages so much easier.
Yeah.
And I think that gives them the opening to accept other cultures and that type of thing, and to embrace the fact that he's half Costa Rican, and he's half Colombian, and he's an American, and that's how, as student of the year, he opened up his speech, which I thought was, as a Nana, I was totally proud of him. But I always, and I was from Montana. I'm from Montana. I grew up around Native Americans and the Crow Indians and played with them. They were my friends, and I didn't look at them any different than what I was, because we're all kids together in the sandbox. So there you go.
Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to lift up a few points that I got from what you just shared. A willingness to be exposed to new languages, and language is a huge part of people's culture. I think it's also important to take stock every now and then of the people that you engage with in your circle, your friends, your family. Do they all look and sound exactly like you? Do they all have the same story? And if that's the case, I challenge you to meet new people, maybe volunteer with Lutheran Social Services where you can meet people with differing stories than you, different backgrounds, because it's a lot harder to dehumanize your neighbor if you know people's stories and you know people as people, right? So that's what I wanted to lift up. We're running out of time, so I just want to quickly lift up that our religion says a lot about how we are supposed to engage with the stranger or the foreigner. Those are common words that you'll hear in our whole text. So I just picked out some verses from Old Testament all the way into our New Testament. So this is from Exodus. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners because you were foreigners in Egypt. And so this is in the context of the law of Moses that was given to the Israelites, and it pays homage to their history of fleeing from Egypt and saying that we are people who know what it's like to be the other in a foreign land. And so, therefore, you should be treating the foreigner as you would like to be treated. Same thing from Leviticus. The foreigner resides among you, must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So not just caring for them, but also loving them as yourself. And then from our Lord Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, the 25th chapter, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me. This is part of the larger parable where Jesus is discussing the final judgment. And Jesus identifies himself as someone hungry, thirsty, and a foreigner, and says, whatever you do to these people, you are doing to me. And then in the New Testament, Hebrews, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. I wanted to lift up this verse because I appreciate that it harkens back to this idea of Abraham in Genesis and Lot. This idea that they welcomed in these strangers who were angels. And so that you don't know who you're welcoming, but we know that we welcome Jesus, right, when we do help those that are in need. And again, I hope that talking about this and giving name to the different pathways that there are to come to the United States, I think is powerful. Because right now we're hearing a lot of language like illegal aliens, which dehumanizes people. And so I think it's important that we equip ourselves with the knowledge to know the differences between refugees, asylum seekers, and what it means to be working without a work permit and things like that. And lastly, I will say that my heart breaks for the ways in which it seems that that ICE is becoming more and more targeted to one ethnic group, which is Hispanic or any kind of Latin descendant people, even going so far as to arresting people that are U.S. citizens and asking questions later. And I think that that is scary, and that is something that's happening, and so we need to talk about it. And name that that's not right, and that everybody has the right to due process here in America. So here's some invitations for next steps. We are people of faith, so first and foremost, I will lift up prayer. Prayer is powerful. But behind that prayer, I think it's important that we continue this conversation. Talk about this in your families. Talk about this with your friends. It is uncomfortable, but we have to talk about it so that our people are taken care of and people aren't scared just to live their life because God calls us to live an abundant life, and he calls that for every human being, no matter where they are. We can give both financially and of our time to LSSSW. And so Connie shared with us, there are some take-home information on the table in the back. You've signed up your email, so maybe consider some next steps with Lutheran Social Services. And then I also wanted to lift up, and on the back of this sheet I gave you is an invite to Shine a Light for Justice, an evening vigil during our churchwide assembly. So our ELCA churchwide is the last week of this month. So Wednesday night, July 30th, we're going to be having a candlelight vigil at the Peace Park at the Roman Catholic Diocese of Phoenix, sorry, I was in seminary in Chicago, so sometimes it just slips out. This is a late night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., but I really want to go, and so I am willing to carpool or caravan. So if you would like to ride with me to this vigil, please let me know. But this is a great way that we can be together in community with other Lutherans from all over the United States, and also really talk about this crisis, I would call it, in the world right now. So please don't let this be the end of the conversation. Let's continue talking. And can I speak for you and say that if people have more questions, they could reach out to you guys?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your emails are on the website, right? The Lutheran Social Services website?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me. I can get you in touch with, and if you're in other groups that, women's group or a men's group or a club of some sort that would be interested in a presentation, we are open to coming. We are really serious about trying to educate the community that there are legal ways that people are here in the United States. Yes. So many people have so many misunderstandings. They think people do really get health care and food stamps and a cell phone as soon as they cross the border. And we really do want to talk to people about how immigration really works. So if you're in groups and want to invite us, we'd be happy to come.
Awesome. I'm going to close our time together in prayer, and then if you have any last-minute things you want to talk about, we can do that on our way out this evening. Let's take a deep breath together. God of all creation, thank you for this time together. Thank you for reminding us that we are beloved children of God, and our call to love and serve the stranger among us. Lord, I ask that you will give us the courage we need to continue this important conversation, that you will give us the love and patience we need as we talk about this subject out in the world, and that you will be with each of us as we do so. Thank you, Lord, that you are close to us, as close as the very breath in our lungs. Amen. Thank you, guys.